First of all, I'd like to say thank you so much for joining us today at our anaSudan forum. It's always really exciting for me to meet each and every one of you, and it's always a huge learning experience. So today's session is going to take a slightly different shape. We want to focus on you. The focus is taken away from having a speaker giving a talk and more into trying to break us into smaller groups and looking at specific themes and then breaking them down, and in the process drawing out the expert information you have and getting to know each other in the process. So I'll say that I would like to focus on us finishing this session within an hour and a half to a maximum 2 hours. I'll start off with an introduction if I just go into my content. In this section, the first thing we'd like to talk about is, well, what is the challenge? What is the purpose of us being here today? So we think that Sudan has lost a proportionate segment of its intelligentsia. So I guess the question is, well, what do we mean by that? And I think I'll start by saying that in anaSudan, we try to veer away from any political debate or any political context, but we think it's time for us to call a spade in some type of arguments or points. We think that in the past 30 years, or not the past 30 years, but during the 30-year regime, there's been a systematic and persistent process of stripping Sudan of its teachers, of its academics, writers, artists, and basically we categorize them as the liberal thinkers, okay? So we think that along with those people, we've also been stripped out of our elite professional and expert capacity. Now, this is open for discussion and debate throughout the workshop. Please don't take this as verbatim. This is how we perceive what has happened in the 30 years, okay? So a proportion of the intelligentsia that has been left in Sudan, we think were swamped and overwhelmed with daily life struggles, whether looking for bread, wala al-aish, wala al-benzine, and so on. So their progress has been stumped, we think, in terms of their professional progress, and we think also their aspirations have been discouraged. So whereas we've had the chance to dream, we've had the chance to develop our skills, our education, they've not had that same opportunity. So if you really name it what it is, we think it's استراتيجية استعمارية بحتة وللأسف المستعمر سوداني الأصل. So if you look back in history, you will find it's a similar concept that's been utilized or was utilized by Hitler actually in Poland during World War II. And it's something you can look into and have a read about. It's something that's well documented in history. So according to the UNESCO, and thanks to our friend Mubarak Maman, he's given me some figures. He said, according to UNESCO, in 2011, there were 2.9 million Sudanese people living abroad. And that figure is estimated to be about 5 million. Listening to young people in Sudan actually today, we think that that figure is probably going to keep climbing. So you can just paint a picture. So what has that left Sudan with is a vacuum. It's a vacuum in leadership, a vacuum in academia, research and development, innovation, social development, the list goes on. And they are pretty much the essentials of social and economic progress of any nation. So you could just, again, do the math. The vacuum has contributed, if not wholly responsible, for the existing lack of trust between individuals and institutions, and not just public institutions, but private institutions. And that is, we think, in anaSudan, is due to the degradation of the services and poor quality standards. So why do we think repatriation is important? There's many reasons. So we think that repatriation is crucial for the building phase that's going on in Sudan at the moment. Why is that the case? Well, we think that we can draw experts with experiences of cutting edge technologies that are actually currently being utilized around the world. They can bring new work methods, expert know-how, and they come with a multilingual capacity. So they can actually use foreign languages at highly proficient and in some cases mother tongue capacity. So you could just imagine how we can utilize that. We can draw a diverse workforce, and it's a diverse global workforce with ties to home and host nations, which could potentially influence, we think, our international policies. So you could just imagine, would a foreign nation ignore Sudan if it has X amount or substantial amount or number of its subjects working, living in Sudan? What we think as well is we can utilize those relationships in a way to, I guess, help further foster relationships, international relationships, diplomatic relationships. So as an example, again, our friend Mubarak Maman has given me today some news that Zainab Badawi has been appointed as director of a charity that relates to the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, who are the future king and queen of Great Britain. So you could just imagine how we can leverage those types of relationships. We also think that we can benefit from international global business networks. There are Sudanese expats who work within top global organizations around the world with decades of experience. We think that we can integrate these resources into societies, and that helps to actually improve our quality of service and actually aligning it perhaps to international standards. By default, that can happen when you've got people who are used to working in a particular standard or particular way of work. And we think that some Sudanese living abroad have the need to be home. And these people simply need and have the right to be able to come back home, establish themselves, and participate in the rebuilding phase of Sudan. We also think that the impact will be positive on society. There'll be maybe perhaps better integration, and maybe we can start rebuilding and rehealing our social fabric. We also think the list goes on as to the whys. We also think that we need to rebuild a stable and reliable nation, finally, for ourselves to start off with. And we think that we can accommodate a lot of people with a lot of differences. And it's simply no longer acceptable for people to be displaced, either in Sudan or outside. And finally, I think the question is it a matter of duty? Is it a question of duty? And I was talking to, I think, Isam yesterday, and I said, what does our national anthem say? And it says, نحن جند الله جند الوطن إن دعا داعي الفداء لم نخن. So I guess that's a private question for people to consider. Is it my duty to be back and participate? So the next thing is who constitutes this global talent, which is a term you're going to hear us saying, especially as we break into our mini groups. Well, it's everybody, expats, professionals, who can contribute positively to the social and economic development of a new Sudan. They can be Sudanese and they can be foreign. I think it's the right time now is for Sudan to open its doors and accept people who can help the rebuilding process, regardless of who they are, as in what their background is or what passport they hold, as long as we can provide a win-win situation. And with COVID-19, I can tell you there are a lot of people who will be available for opportunities wherever. Having said that, Sudanese expats like us are the easy win because we have the passion and the willingness and the sense of duty to be back home in Sudan. So How can Sudan attract global talent? We think it's very simple. There needs to be a government, private or individual, led global recruiting investment strategy. So there has to be a persistent campaign that starts to promote Sudan. So we think, and we're excited about this one, we in anaSudan decided to do our part and start a what we call an Invest Sudan campaign. So we'd like this to be literally focused on promoting talent sourcing and investment opportunities in Sudan. We aim to just have a conversation, starting off with conversations to normalize the idea that setting foot in Sudan is a potential. There's a possibility of that. People's aspirations of being home to Sudan, we'd like to be able to talk about those aspirations. And we want to talk openly about what are the risks, what are the mitigations, and then highlight just along the way, keep highlighting the opportunities. It's a campaign that we will be happy to have the government in Sudan sponsor. Whether the private sector in Sudan would like to sponsor, we're happy to work with anybody who would like to utilize us as a platform or as a concept to help them promote opportunities in Sudan. We think it's the right way forward.